Minister Jeremy Quin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Over the last few weeks, I've had many discussions with my right honourable friend, the member for Preseli, Pembrokeshire, and other colleagues here today who are representing those 14 sites around England where this has taken place. I'm acutely aware from those discussions and the emails and communications that my honourable friends have been receiving from their constituents what a great distress these notices to quit have caused. And I'm very grateful that my right honourable friend secured this debate this evening so that we could put more clarity on the situation. It is perfectly understandable. There are so many difficulties faced by families at this time, as have been highlighted by honourable members in this evening's debate. And I'm determined that we do all we can to get to a better solution on this. So, firstly, may I reaffirm at the outset that while we have given notice on these 350 homes, the notice period is a full 12 months for all those homes, for every tenant, taking us through to September, the end of September 2021. I want to provide full clarity to tenants as soon as possible, but we are totally committed over the next few weeks and months, if a way can possibly be found with Annington, as my honourable friend from North West Cambridge has suggested, and other members, to find a way to enable tenants to have the offer of remaining in their homes when those properties transfer. I should be clear from the outset that the MOD's service family accommodation has indeed one strategic purpose. I'll come back to the honourable member's point. One strategic purpose, which is to provide homes for our service personnel and their families wherever and whenever they are required to serve. Where we no longer need housing to meet military requirements, these are disposed of, then my right honourable friend is absolutely right that over recent years, in order to reduce the voids, for reasons I will get on to, where properties have been temporarily vacant, we have made those available for sublet to civilians. Up until 1996, Defence owned the vast majority of service accommodation outright. However, that year, the MOD entered into an agreement with Annington Homes Limited. Under the agreement, the MOD provided a 999-year lease to Annington over 57,428 homes. The MOD proceeded to sublet the same properties under a 200-year underlease. Under the terms of the arrangement, the MOD retained all the costs of maintaining and managing the estate. This, among other reasons, meant that the MOD received a 58% discount on open market rents for the houses concerned for the first 25 years. Honourable members will appreciate that those 25 years start to come up from next year. Annington has publicly stated that they believe new rental arrangements should result in a significant increase in rent. The MOD disagrees, and this matter is currently subject to arbitration. Given that both parties recognised from the outset that the needs for MOD housing evolve over time, there was always an understanding that the MOD can return homes to Annington. And since 1996, over 19,000 homes have indeed been given back. Furthermore, last year we agreed with Annington that we would hand back a minimum of 500 properties annually for the next 7 years in return for a reduction on the dilapidation charge on each house of up to £7,000 per property, delivering up to a £24.5 million improvement to the taxpayer. However, homes can only be handed back as a group of contiguous properties, usually minimum packages of 20 homes. Where a group of properties are vacant, and it is absolutely clear that there is no future military use, the route to hand back is very clear. However, in many cases, the situation has lacked, I'm afraid, that clarity. And rather than leave family homes vacant for potentially years, the MOD has sublet these homes on a short-term basis to civilian tenants. First, this provides a home to the tenants. Secondly, it mitigates the cost to the MOD while longer-term decisions are made, or indeed while a vacancy exists before service personnel move in. And can I emphasise that we do not actually make money on these civilian lets. After all associated costs, the MOD estimates that they are on average loss-making, but only a small loss compared to that would otherwise be the case. Around 1,500 Annington home properties have been sublet in this way. I'm very sorry that decisions were taken, and my right honourable friend raised this, I'm very sorry that decisions were taken on the notice to quit and communications made without MPs or indeed the local authorities being informed sooner. Decisions that were made on this portfolio of properties, which would be passed back to Annington as part of a wider programme, were only made during the course of the summer. And I'm afraid COVID did have a direct impact on this timing. During the lockdown, base moves were frozen. This has had an ongoing impact throughout the defence estate, with homes that might have been vacated remaining occupied for longer. In addition, during the same period, more than 1,200 service personnel and family members who would ordinarily have moved on from SFA housing, either due to the end of service or, sadly in some cases, due to family estrangement, have, as a result of the specific circumstances of COVID, remained in their homes. This number continues to grow. The consequences of these constraints forced us to identify other properties, surplus to MOD requirements, which we could hand back. But whatever the strategic position for the MOD and the nature of the short-term tenancies entered into, I want action to be taken for the future, and I'll pick up on the point raised by my right honourable friend. While it's absolutely right that temporarily vacant homes are made available for rent rather than being left vacant, I do want greater clarity at the outset given to residents if the property is expected to be required for military use or disposal, and if so, in what time frame. I will give way to my right honourable friend.
Very grateful for my honourable friend giving way. Has he looked at the way these houses are being marketed through Orchard and Shipman? Are they being straight with these families about the terms on which they are taking on these properties? So many of the residents in my own constituency tell me that they were under the impression this would be secure and that they could look forward to many years of living in these properties.
Honourable members nodding. No such impression should have been given. These are short-term lets with, after first 4 months, 2-month notice periods. They are temporarily vacant and they're being occupied on that basis. I was very, very concerned to hear from my right honourable friend and from others that might have taken place. I have received absolute assurances that that wasn't part of the marketing strategy for the managing agents. But of course I will give way to my right honourable friend.
And in my constituency, as he knows, there's some 60 houses in Wittering, but certainly some of those householders were told that this would be medium to long term, and some of them have only recently moved in, literally a few weeks ago.
I've been aware of that from my right honourable friend. I'm particularly sorry to hear that that was the case, and it should not have been the case. I've had written assurances that no such undertakings were received, but if the honourable gentleman would like to write to me further, I would of course pick up on that. I've had a written assurance that that was not the case and not part of the marketing, and it certainly should never have been part of the marketing of these properties. And we would of course look into that and take it enormously seriously if that was the case. But it makes it even more clear that what we need to ensure for the future is that there is more clarity given to sublet tenants. It would be a crying shame not to make homes available that are vacant, but we need to make certain we are clear of the tenants, and that work is also being undertaken so that where there are existing tenancies in place, I want the same process to take place so tenants can have that peace of mind for the future. I also want to ensure that in circumstances, as in the honourable gentleman's case, where disposals are due to take place, that wherever possible these are staggered over time to reduce the impact on local communities. It clearly has a significant impact on local housing demand where this happens on too great a number, and that we can, I'm sure, in the future make certain that we stagger. My right honourable friend asked why could we simply not rescind. I understand the passion of the question. I understand what drives it. I can't pretend to these civilian tenants that there's a long-term future in the MOD estate. It's simply not the case. But what I am going to determine to do is do all we can to make that transfer as smooth as possible and the transition as smooth as possible, if we can possibly do so. My right honourable friend is also absolutely right that the properties at Cormorant Close are not linked to base utilities. In fairness to Annington, a lot of the data on this goes right back to 1996. I've had a full review of the circumstances for each of these, and we will obviously be sharing this with Addington as I hope we move towards a better solution. I sincerely hope so. But it turns out that only 4 of the 14 sites has that linkage to MOD utilities, which I hope is helpful in ongoing discussions. I do really want us to secure a good and improved circumstance for our tenants. If we can work with social housing providers, as my honourable friend from Devizes mentioned, we would clearly wish to do so. We can't sell to social housing providers. If we can facilitate a process with Addington Homes, and it may well be in their interests, we'd be very keen to do exactly that. Coming back, if I may, to the... And my honourable friend asked about the overall shape of things. Yes, we must work with Addington. I really do hope that we can get somewhere. Many ministers before me have looked at this agreement in detail to find out what levers they have. I am again reviewing where we are with the circumstance, but I really just hope that we can come to an agreement. In fairness to Addington, they have not said that they have an in principle opposition to finding an arrangement here, but I'm aware that come September of next year, they do have the absolute right to demand vacant possession of these homes. But we are determined to work with them, and I sincerely hope that we can come to a satisfactory conclusion which works for Addington and works for these sublet tenants, and in a position that we'll do all we can to try and get to a situation that will work for them and has benefits for the tenants concerned. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.